totally no nonsense BS here. I'm just being very open and honest. I just got really tired of seeing the coaches coaching the coaches and wannabe coaches of, and I hope I'm not offending anybody or whatever, but I'm from a different generation. This is the boundaries and I'm sovereign. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Sovereign.
I am so honored today to have Susan Young back with us. It was such a pleasure to have her 2 years ago, but it's such an honor to have you back again, Susan. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I appreciate the invitation. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Likewise. Well, it's so good to have you back, but I want to know, what have you been up to the last 2 years since we last spoke?
Oh my gosh. Well, business-wise, we have rebranded and I still work with coaches, but we work really in a niche of architects, engineers, and construction, the AEC industry, because what I found is that they really are so proficient at their technology and communication that way, but it's the human factor that I talk about, that feeling comfortable in presentations and knowing how to introduce yourself and network and build your reputation and trust and connections. So work a lot with them. So I speak at conferences and do online trainings, just like we did with, and we still do with entrepreneurs and coaches who are starting out. So it's been an interesting rebrand for the AEC, as they're called, Architects, Engineers, Construction, over the past year and a half or so. But still, everything comes back to sharing a great story, being able to articulate your message, and feeling comfortable and confident in your own skin.
I love that. And I love that there was like a shift too, because I feel like a lot of times in construction and architecture, the stories might not come across as maybe in coaches and other speakers and things like that, but really being able to hone in on that, because I've been seeing you on so many stages, so many conferences and summits. You've just been everywhere speaking, really embodying what you do as well. But when you were on 2 years ago, we were talking about investing in ourselves, being 5 to 10 steps ahead of just where you're helping somebody else. I'm curious, what have you been doing to invest in yourself the last 2 years?
That is a loaded question, my friend. I had invested in two very high level, very expensive mastermind groups. And so I pulled away from that. So the investment that I made, and I've been very open about this, a journey of self-discovery and therapy and all that. I've been on a journey of self-discovery. And what I did was invest I've been studying Abraham Hicks. So a lot of the spirituality things, which I've been studying before, but I did just literally invest. I went to one of the live programs in Philadelphia in June. So that was huge, to see that take place. So that was a small investment, obviously, but what I've invested in is, like I say, continuing with therapy and what I've learned at the tender age of 61, how to love myself.
Mm.
And so, that's pretty deep, but that's, I think it's essential for entrepreneurs and small business owners and everyone who walks the planet. But I feel like I really found myself. We had a family tragedy, which I think I mentioned to you. We lost my 24-year-old niece unexpectedly. And I said, I lost Lindsay and I found myself. And so it's just been an inner journey, and everything that's inside is obviously, affects your external world, your business and how you show up and all that.
No, and I'm so grateful for you to share that, because I know so many people that go through so many horrible tragedies in their families, but how we really work through that. And it starts with that self-love piece. And I love that you found yourself and have been doing the work and doing all these different things and going to Abraham Hicks like live event as well. And I'm curious because I love him. I've listened for years. And what
Yeah.
did you take away from that conference or workshop or what it was?
Well, it was so interesting that, they call it, I guess, a seminar. It was like 4 hours long. And so what I took away from it was, and it was so interesting because as coaches and entrepreneurs in your audience, I know a lot and I've been in business for 24 years. So I know the launches and the deadlines and the reverse engineering and the email marketing and all that. So I had a date of June 21st to launch something. And at the end of the program, they said, just forget the dates and take the pressure off yourself. And there is no time frame. There is no time limit. You just need to be happy and aligned and show up and have pure expectation. And so I felt like that was my permission slip to say, you know what, I can bump this out a little bit if I need to. I can cancel it if I want to, if I'm not feeling it. Just again, a permission slip to say, what is June? Who came up with June 21st? Who came up with this? I came up with it for a reason at that time. And it didn't really matter. In the end, it just didn't matter.
That's a very valuable lesson that I've struggled with time and time again of like, well, it needs to be done this time. Well, why? Why does it need to be done on this day? And I love that you mentioned that you learned the alignment piece and just being able to really feel into it more so, work that inner work aspect where it's what feels right for us. It might look a certain way on paper or social media or launches, and you've been in business for a long time. So you've seen all the transformations and different things. But I think when we truly listen to ourselves, instead of the outside noise, we could get so clear. And part of your journey, what you were mentioning, is just that self-love and really pouring into yourself. And through that journey, learning at the seminar, all the work you've done, what have you really seen transform for yourself, even in your business too?
Oh my gosh, I just, show up and have just deeper conversations. And, a lot of it's personal, like my parents are older, they're, 90, 93, blessed to have both my mom and dad. But I feel like everything that needed to be said has been said. They're, relatively healthy. But business-wise, again, showing up as the real deal, no nonsense, and being in alignment. And, I don't even know if I knew what that meant because, and I've said this before, I was born in Brooklyn and raised in New Jersey, and I went to school in Connecticut. I hadn't gotten very far, like I was, East Coast. And so everything I grew up with was, brush it off. I didn't know what a feeling was until like a year and a half ago. So people would talk in the mastermind group that I alluded to is, how do you feel? And the intuition. And I had to like sit and quiet. And I'm like, what is she talking about? I like, is that a feeling there? I'm like, just brush it off. And like my grandpa used to say in Brooklyn, don't wear a chip on your shoulder, brush it off. Right. And so I didn't know what that meant. And so I really had to learn to sit quietly and stop that racing mind that goes on and on. And I read a really phenomenal book that I'll recommend here called Driven by Douglas Backman. Caroline, I'm telling you, every page was highlighted. I was blown. I'm like, this is me. This is me. And then I learned some human design.
Yeah.
And so I elevated, that's what I've invested in, continuing to learn all of that. And the patterns that I have in my behaviors from when I was a child that have carried over to, growing up and brush it off and being that East Coast, I don't know what a feeling is, opening my business, being married now for almost 35 years, having two grown children, being through two major traumas with kids in the family, including my daughter, all of that. So I learned through this book, Driven, I'm like, has he been following me around? Like, what? This is unbelievable. And so human design, if you're familiar or not, is just, how the patterns and how my behavior, just do what I like. Why do I keep doing things that I don't enjoy? And doing things that I'm strong in and believe in and effective at and that I'm really good at, that comes easy to me, that other people might struggle with, like writing. I was a news reporter, so I've been writing for 40 years and a storyteller, and I've been in business a long time. So all of this about being curious and all of these characteristics and traits and attributes, now I'm aware of, okay, this is impulsive, sleep on it. Don't do this right now. Why did I make certain decisions and how can I be easier on myself and not so self-critical and all of that. So just huge breakthroughs, but that book really made a big difference.
Yeah, I've been hearing about Driven. I haven't read it yet, but you're like the fourth person that's told me about the book. So I'm
That's
like,
a
okay,
sign.
it is. It totally is. So I will go get it.
Yeah.
But I love that you explored human design and all the intuition. And like, it's funny because I love that stuff. And I didn't really know what feelings were too, because I'm from the East Coast. But when I got
Oh,
into therapy, I was like, oh, okay, I have to actually deal with my feelings and understand what this is all about. And even now in my 30s, like I'm finally like understanding things to such a deep level. And there's still so much more growth, I believe, because there's so many layers, and the more we don't address, the more things start to come up in different ways. But I love that you use that as fuel to really align with what works for you and doing what you're great at, which is writing, speaking, being able to really understand people's stories and get curious. And I feel like that's what you've been started as and continue
yeah.
to do in different
Yeah.
capacities. But I wanted to go back to the branding, because I know that was a big part of your transformation the last 2 years or year and a half when you were doing the masterminds, doing all this work. What really inspired you to make that shift for your business?
Totally no nonsense BS here. I'm just being very open and honest. I just got really tired of seeing the coaches coaching the coaches and wannabe coaches of, and I hope I'm not offending anybody or whatever, but I'm from a different generation. This is the boundaries and I'm sovereign. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Sovereign and like, what is this? So
Yeah.
because I'm like, what's the deal? I cut the crap. Like, what is this? So, and there's a place for them, but I don't know that that's my place. I'll
Mhm.
put it that way. So I said, who needs the most help? Where can I be of the best service? How can I servant leadership? And my grandma, who I often talk about, was born in Brooklyn in 1899 and lived to be 95 years old, had a profound relationship with my grandparents. And she used to say, do what makes you happy, but that you can connect to people. And so what I did was I stopped and thought, this is not making me happy. So I started to unfriend a lot of people. I'll put it that way on Facebook. I'm like, I'm not getting this and they're not getting me and whatever. It's fine. We're talking past each other. And so just being curious and being a good storyteller and knowing what questions to ask and how to sell. I think those are the big takeaways from the branding. And my grandma used to say, whenever she opened the door and greeted people, she'd say, and this summed up her whole life, these 5 words: what can I give you? What can I give you? And she didn't have money or diamonds or bank accounts, but she gave of herself. And that is far more priceless. So when I show up, and that links back to the alignment thing of, I don't need to chase clients, or I don't need to close 5 deals this month because, I have to pay the rent or the car broke down or whatever, the kids need shoes. What I know that when I show up with an open heart and a good intention, that I'll close 10 deals and I'll always have a new car. My kids will always go to Disney or whatever it is. So how can I help you? What can I give you? How can I be of service? How do I show up in the world with the intention of help, whether it's at the dry cleaner, the mechanic, or at a conference, giving a keynote speech?
I love that. I'm just like taking that all in, because I literally just had a conversation earlier today about this. And we were talking about it's just how we wake up every morning. It's like, who can I help today? How can I service them in the best way possible? And it's not always about money, because even growing up, I was never like very rich or had money to give, but I could give my time, I could give my heart. And I think that just speaks volumes to the character and the person you are, but also the good you're putting out in the world, and knowing what aligns for you and how you can be best service. And I don't think you offended anyone. Well, I don't think you offended me. But
I'm learning because my daughter's now 31. I'm like, I was just 31. You can't be 31. And our son is 28. So it's like, yeah, are we allowed to say that? Everybody kind of tiptoes around one of the kids, not both of them. One of them is more, I need my space and all that. So, it's like I say, it's all generational. But I think one of the things from Abraham Hicks was that the big takeaway when we talk about money, money is a byproduct of alignment. And that's what that message from my grandma, taught me. It's the same thing, just different words or different way to interpret it.
Exactly, because it's the relationships we build, I think, are the most important and most impactful, regardless, because money flows, it's energy. But when we're really making an impact and being able to just exchange stories, exchange that energy between two people or a group of people, it just makes those waves happen in so many ways that we might not even see coming in the best way possible, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But with all of that, I'm just curious because I know you've already accomplished so much in 24 years of business, 40 years of writing, storytelling. But what's next for you? What do you see happening in the next year or so for you and your business?
Well, it's been interesting because we just moved to Myrtle Beach to South Carolina. And, that's everyone's like, oh my God, you've been talking about this for so long. Kids are, we're empty nesters and all that. The dog's gone. So we're a mile from the beach. So we're doing that. And I wrote on my whiteboard, teach, beach, bliss.
Ooh, I like it.
I do virtual coaching from anywhere, obviously. I'm a laptop life, and so is my husband. So it's good. I like to go out and speak in person, of course, and connect with people that way post COVID and all. But I like to limit the travel. I don't want to be dealing with airports and delays and people. So the virtual coaching is good. Somebody said, oh, you're going to retire? You're moving to a retirement place down in South Carolina? I'm like, I don't see myself retiring, but I love what I do. I just love what I do. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you got to move to Florida for retirement.
yeah, there's more people to help, especially in AEC in that sector. They're really far behind, and they know that. They're just years behind with communication and leadership and training and investing in, they'll invest in software. But when I talk to, for instance, like a manager or a regional leader at an international engineering firm, and he says, oh, we just moved our office and I was dusting off my bookshelf, and the last training I had was dated 2017. I'm like, okay, I think you probably need some new tools and strategies. And, we're very busy. We can't do that. I'm like, okay. So that's where I see myself being of the most service. And again, continuing to coach and inspire entrepreneurs and small business owners with the things that I've learned along this journey too.
I love it. Well, I love everything that you're doing. I love that the transition has been so fruitful for you, being able to, because you were in Texas before, right?
Yeah, I didn't even realize, well, I knew I was in Texas, but I didn't realize we had been there 18 years. I was like, oh my gosh, and we moved from New Jersey to San Antonio. And that was culture shock, just real quick, because when we moved after 18 years from Texas to Myrtle Beach a few months ago, people were like, oh my gosh, is it a big adjustment? I said, no, this is like a minor adjustment. Moving from New Jersey to Texas was huge. We were like, what are we doing here? And we had family there too. So we had been there. We knew what it was like, but it was like, this is like really, strange. So, and when I open my mouth, people will say, you're not from Texas. I'm like, no, I'm not a Texan. I came from Texas, but I'm not a Texan. I'm East Coast. I mean, like I say, no nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
The real deal. Here I am. Take it or leave it.
I love it. I love it. I appreciate it. And I think other people, especially the ones that work with you, understand that too and embody it. And just being able to have somebody who is so transparent and honest and there to support and serve in the best way possible. But I so appreciate you coming back on, just sharing what you've been up to. It's been so great to catch up. I'm sure we could talk for a couple more hours, but we won't today at least. But thank you again, Susan, for just coming back on and sharing what you've been up to the last 2 years.
I appreciate the invitation and the warm conversation. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. And make sure to like, subscribe, comment below. What was the biggest takeaway from Susan today? I'm sure she would love to see that comment, and we'll see you on the next episode.